cover us to watch. The first thing I get the joy of talking about is quality assurance. So we have our big audit coming this year that TX CASA comes in, looks at everything from finances to our advocacy to everything. They just deep dive in. And so that's happening in March. And so one of the things that I get to talk to y'all about is the only way we do really well in our QA and our quality assurance around our advocacy is through Optima. So I know y'all hear it every day from your supervisors, and I'm going to say it again, but the best way to help everyone do really well through this quality assurance is to make sure you're keeping your Optima up to date. Y'all all do fantastic work. And again, unfortunately, the only way we can keep track of that is through Optima. I'll say Optima 4 more times so that we all know that Optima is our key to success when it comes to keeping track of our advocacy for our children. And so I know we're going to do extremely well through this audit. We have some great, y'all are all great advocates. I know y'all have done so many great things for our children. But again, Optima is directly related to how our quality assurance goes in Optima.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, on your table you have a continuing education list. This is just a small list of the things that are on the website. But how many hours of continuing education do you have to have?
15.
12. If you want to get 15, you can, but you only have to have 12. A lot of the things you're doing professionally will count, especially if you're an educator, if you're a nurse, therapist. There's a lot of things you're already doing. You just have to turn it in to your supervisor so that they can look. A lot of what we're doing here will count towards your professional education. Professional continuing education. You just have to turn it into them. So this is just a list of our upcoming CEU opportunities that will be here in office. Next month is the surrogate parent training that Judge Rotenberry has asked all of our advocates to do. How many of you have not done surrogate parent training yet? And that would be probably everyone trained in 2019. So please try to come to that next month. We'll talk about that in greater detail, but it serves other benefits besides CASA. You can help other kids in AISD, not just your CASA kids. You can go and spend 30 minutes to sign off on an education plan for a child that doesn't have a parent that will come in, and as a surrogate parent we can do that. And so we do it up here a lot of the staff gets called. So, and then in March we're doing genogram. And where's Kathy? She's down there. Okay. So in March, Kathy's going to be teaching a whole session on genograms, the benefits, how that can help you with your case, how you can find support for the families in the case. It's going to be really interesting. And she's going to put up she's going to do a big old genogram. It's going to be a lot of fun. So then you can kind of see the rest of them. We have educational advocacy. In May, we're doing teen sexuality and orientation. This is something that we're seeing more of, that kids struggle with their identity, or they identify in a different way, or they're struggling with acting out sexually because of the abuse that's happened. So this is going to be a great opportunity to hear from a professional on how we can help these children and how we can advocate for their needs and how we can provide support and encouragement to them. So we're going to fill the rest of that in towards the end of the year, but the next few months we have some great opportunities coming up. The rest of them are really easy to understand. You can go to our website. You can go to the e-learning station on CASA's TX CASA's webpage, and there are hundreds of things you can do on there. You can go to CASA College, and there are hundreds of little webinars and things you can do. There's podcasts, there's videos, there's movies. Let me say, if you watch a movie or read a book, we do not want a review. We want to know what you learned from that movie or that book that's going to help you be a better advocate, and how you think you can apply the things that you've seen or the things that you've read. So that's what you should write about, as a reflective of what you saw, what you read, and how it's going to make you be a better advocate and give you some other skills to help you. So this is just a partial list, but this is just something that'll help get you going. And do you have any questions about that? Okay. Alrighty. Who is up next? Miss Martha? Oh, we're doing the CPS court. No, that was Martha. We'll talk about it. Didn't you?
I can talk about it.
Yeah.
It's very short. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that Judge Probst's court is the one that we are in now, and it is on the second floor of the courthouse, and that's where all of our hearings will be unless your supervisor tells you otherwise. So go to the second floor, and it's called the Child Protection Court, and we'll get into that in a little bit when we go over the court reports.
Has anybody not been in the new courtroom yet? Okay, you're going to like it. I mean, it's really nice.
I will say, for those that have not been in it yet, when you walk into the courtroom, there is a long table on the right-hand side of the room, and that is where the CASA sits, on that wall, in those chairs by the AAL usually, because it is confusing because it's kind of set up a little bit different.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. All right, so was it me or you first? So one of the things we're focusing on for 2020 is that we want a greater connection with you guys. So the way that most advocates stay motivated is not just because they have a case or just because they have a friend that's a supervisor, but it's a combination of things. You have to be passionate about what you're doing, and you have to feel called to that mission, but you also have to have a greater connection to your supervisor, but you also have to have a greater connection to the program in general. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be working hard this year, is to really develop that connection with you guys. And so we want to really provide relevant training to you, things that you really will benefit from. We don't just want to throw something out there that you're having to go to one more thing and you're not getting anything from it. This year, we really want to make it relevant. We want you to feel connected. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do on the Post-it notes that are on the table is something that you feel that you need. Some of the advocates will remember I sent out a survey last year. We've implemented some of those topics. If there's something we still have not hit that you think would help you be a better advocate and that would develop your skills, or you're really still uncertain about this, if you want more Optima training, if you want to, if you miss the adoption specialist that came in this fall, anything you can think of, write it on that Post-it note and leave it on the table for me, and we'll pick it up at the end. Miss Sandra?
We've gone to supervisor training. We go to a lot of trainings, and a lot of the CASA programs around the state are starting to call their supervisors coaches. Now, that's fine, and if you want to call us Coach Shirey, that's okay, but the point here is, as sometimes the word supervisor connotes that someone's looking down and, following my every move, and that is real. Do we do that to y'all? No. We want to walk alongside of you. We want to be that person that's there. We'll go visit with you. I think all of you know that. We'll go visit with you. We're always here for you to call and talk to. If one of us happens to be out that day, someone else can step up. But this, it's almost like if you're a supervisor, you're sitting in your office and looking. And I hope we never, ever come across that way to our advocates. We want to interact with you and be involved, and because we look at these cases as our cases as well. These are our kids too. You just happen to be the one out in the field and making all of the connections. So, we're coaches.
Well, and coaches find your strengths. They find what you're good at, and they enhance that, and they develop that. So when we were talking about the motivation about keeping you active and keeping you engaged, is that I want to know, and you're going to write this on your card, why did you volunteer to begin with? And some of my class last fall have already done this, but I want you to write down, why did you say yes? What motivated you to do it? And you're going to keep it. It's not for me, you're not turning it in. But when you're having a rough day and your case is not going especially well and you're having a difficult time, I want you to be able to look out, pull that out, and remind yourself why you're doing what you are doing. Hey, Rob, will you go open the windows back there, and let's see if we can get a little air circulating. And then that's just going to go in your book, so you're not going to share it with anyone. I just want you to really think about why and remind yourself why. And most of y'all have heard my story about Willow. my very first case. And she is truly why I'm still doing what I'm doing. She was the first one. I'm still anti-rebel. Almost 7 years later now, I'm still anti-rebel. I'm still involved in her life. And she popped in to give me a visit this summer, and she's doing so good. And so whenever I'm having, and most of y'all know, her picture's in my office. So every time I'm wondering, oh man, it's rough today, am I making a difference? Yeah, we're making a difference. And you need to tap into that and remind yourself about why you're doing this, because it's not always easy. There are a lot of demands, there's a lot of requests, but you're doing important work that nobody else is doing. You're filling a role in this child's life that nobody else can fill. You're there to give them support and stability and encouragement and to help them get more out of life. And so we value what you're doing, and we don't want to lose you. We want you to stay motivated, and we're here to support you, to coach you, to guide you, to give you whatever you need to stay engaged. But don't forget what you're doing and why you're doing it. Miss Sandra, I think that's, oh no. Oh, this is what you'd like to see from us. I already have you doing that. So that was just about skills, coaching, staff, peers. All right, Selma.
Okay, I get to talk about communication, and everybody knows I don't like to talk. So, as you kind of see, we have a diagram here, and so we need to let you know that we as Big Country CASA answer to Texas CASA and to the court. And so all of the things that we ask of you are because we have to answer to them. Not because it's an extra chore for us to do or something that we wish that we didn't have anything better to do. It's just that we're held accountable by Texas CASA and especially by the court, because that's how the judge takes care of our kids. And so we have to be kept informed and know what's going on in your cases. And as Lauren said, Optima is one of those ways. Whenever you put your stuff into Optima and those little notes that you write at the bottom of Optima, some people put good notes in there, some people don't put anything in there. And it's okay, except for that if something happens to one of you and your supervisor has to step in and take over your case or work on your case or write a court report, if you've communicated in Optima all that's going on with your case in the last few weeks, he or she can step right in and write the court report or go to a meeting and substitute for you. And so that's just a really good way to communicate. We also have to communicate with our caseworkers. We also have to communicate with our attorneys. We have to communicate with our kids and our placements and all of those kind of people. And so ways we can do that are by text and phone calls and emails and any way that whatever preference that they have. And so we'd just like to be reminding you that communication is a very important part of being a CASA, and so that's one of our major things. Then I have a few little housekeeping notes. If you receive an email or a text message or just a message from your CASA supervisor, could you please answer us back within 24 hours so that we know you got that message? Sometimes maybe you get busy and you just forgot, but if we don't get an answer, then we begin to wonder, oh, what's happened? Do they need help? And we want to help you. And if you are having an issue and you've got a health issue or a family issue, if you'll just let us know, then we'll help you with your case or anything that we can do like that. We also ask that you would check your email at least once a week, because there's lots of emails that are coming to you from us that maybe need to be addressed, or you might miss out on a meeting or something important for your case. So please check your email. And then anytime you need help, don't hesitate to call us. Don't be embarrassed that you need help. We are here to help you, and that's what we are all wanting to do.
Do y'all have any questions about the communication part? Us not knowing is what makes it difficult. That we just don't know if we don't hear back. So just communicate. And sometimes I think people get embarrassed because they get busy and they don't, oh man, I forgot to call, I forgot to do this. And then 2 weeks go by and then they're feeling more guilty, and so then they're avoiding it. Don't do that. Just say, oh man, I got busy, life happened. Just communicate with us. So everybody is aware, I think somewhat, of community-based care. The transition from the phase 2 is coming up about the privatization of CPS. That child care is going to be privatized. We're in phase 1. How many of you have had interactions with 2Engage already regarding placements? So 2Engage is two agencies, New Horizons and Texas Family Initiative, who combined to form 2Engage, and the goal is that by privatizing some of these things, it will go better, it will be more efficient. You know, they tried this. Who remembers the first time they tried it? What was the name of that? It began with a P. Providence. Years ago, anyone remember Providence? And it failed because they were in it to make money. Big surprise, you can't make money in foster care. And so with 2Engage being a nonprofit, New Horizons has great connections in Abilene. They have great connections all across the state. And so their goal is that they can recruit foster families better than a profit agency can, and that they can develop relationships here in Abilene that will open up more foster placements, and then hopefully more kids stay in our region. So phase 2 is going to go into effect. Phase 1 started December of 2018, and it's had ups and downs. The difference with 2Engage is that they have milestones, they have measurements they have to hit. If they hit those, they make money. If they fail to hit those, they lose money. So they've got a lot of motivation to make sure they're hitting those markers. So phase 2, which will be conservatorship, where we're dealing with CPS right now, where you have a conservatorship worker, that's going to transition to 2Engage in June of this year. Now, that could change at the last minute, but their plan is right now that it will begin in June. So what that means is they will do all the placements, CPS will investigate, 2Engage will take over the case management, they'll do placements, they're going to do case management, and they're going to have it all the way through adoption. So what that's going to mean is that you might have a new caseworker. And we need to say this clearly, every CPS caseworker has been offered or will be offered the opportunity to move over to 2Engage. So if they don't go, it's because they chose not to, but they're trying to get experienced caseworkers over there. So their goal is that your caseworker will move over and that nothing will change for you except where they work. But we might have new caseworkers. What did I say? I forgot to look it up, what they're going to be called.
Case managers,
Permanency manager, case, I don't know. I'll email it to you, but I forgot to pull it up on my phone. But they're going to change the title a little bit. They're not going to be called conservatorship workers. They're going to be case management workers or something like that. So what this is going to mean to you is that we're going to have to work harder on collaboration and communication. And we already work really hard at communicating with these caseworkers, right? Well, we're going to have to extend grace to them. We're going to have to be a little bit more patient during this time of transition, and we're just going to have to communicate a little more. That might mean more emails, more texts, so that you have a paper trail of those communications. If you're having a problem, you're going to continue to copy your supervisor on it, and then you might follow up with a phone call to your supervisor and say, you're going to have to try to help me connect because this is not working. But they're assuring us that they're going to be really working hard to make this transition go smoothly. They're going to be coming in and talking to us this spring. They're going to come in and meet with the staff first, and then we'll probably have a time late summer or early fall where they'll come in and present to all the advocates, where you can hear directly from them. But nothing changes as far as your assignment to the case, but your caseworker might change. Okay? And we'll get you all that contact information as we get it. Some of them are already making transitions, so you might have something come up pretty soon. Okay.
Okay, I want you to think of your own children, if you have them, or child, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, or whatever. And if someone said, every day when you get up, I want to make sure you do the minimum for your kid, what would your response be? You don't have to tell me, but I don't think any of us ever raised our kids on a minimum. Maybe sometimes if we didn't have money, it might have been that way. But when we put our contacts into Optima, you know that there's those minimum requirements. And so you have to see your child face-to-face a minimum of once a month. You have to see the placement once a month. You have to see your supervisor once. You have those minimum contacts. Well, the other day, an advocate who's been an advocate for a good while was on the phone with me, and we were going over we were having to do her case review on the phone because she was at work, and we were going through, well, you're going to see this in a minute, this little check marks. And there was a little box that didn't have a check in it, and she said, wait a minute, I know I visited that month. And I said, look, the kid is 3 hours away. You only have to see her once every 3 months for minimum contact. And her response was, that's what she said to me, minimum schminimum, or whatever. I'm not sure how she said it. And I said, what? And she said, why would I do minimum? This is my kid. This is my kid. I hope that's the way you feel about your CASA kids. And the whole point here is we do require you to do minimum contacts because Texas CASA requires that, the court requires that, and so we have to require that. And we're not trying to make you feel guilty if you don't do over the thing, but the point here is this is our new motto. Don't you like it? Maximize your minimum. If there's times that you can do something or whatever, and so many of you do. Some of you put in so many contact logs that it takes us a day to approve all of them. And we're okay with that because you are definitely maximizing your minimum, and we do so appreciate that. But we just kind of want us to start thinking about, and we're trying to do that too, because we all work cases as well, that sometimes you're thinking, and surely we don't think this way about the child. How little can I do and get by with this? Because that's really, I know, what none of our hearts are there. So we just want to kind of bring that up. We have an MOU with the court, a memorandum of understanding that says we will meet these minimum requirements. And so we're looking for maximum. That's where we're going. So I've kind of gone over, you are aware of face-to-face with the child if it's an hour or less. Once a month, your supervisor once a month, the placement once a month, the CPS worker once a month. And then there are quarterly requirements, minimum requirements, that you have some legal advocacy, some educational advocacy, medical and mental health advocacy, and if the biological parents are in the picture, that you see them or talk to them once a month, once every quarter, sorry. So, minimum, maximize it.
Oh, and she said all that, sorry. They did deserve our best, yes. All right, Miss Martha. Whoops, jump.
Okay, court reports. Okay, court reports are required by the court. They are to be filed no less than 10 days before the date of our hearing. In order to do that, we're going to ask that y'all file them, get them to your supervisor at least 11 days before that hearing. And the reason for that is it is supposed to be e-filed by that 10th day. And so in order to answer any questions, make any changes on the report, whatever needs to be done to that report before it's e-filed, we need to have it 1 day before the 10 days so that it is filed timely. What can happen if it's not filed timely is the attorneys can ask for a continuance of that hearing, and the judge has to grant it because that is part of our requirements, is it has to be filed 10 days before. We don't want to do that. We don't want to have to stand up there and tell the judge and everybody else why we didn't get our report filed timely. This has happened to CPS before. I've never seen it happen to CASA before. So let's just not have any of those delays. We don't want that to happen. Let's see. Your supervisor should remind you 1 to 2 weeks out that you have a report being due. And also you can look in Optima under the tab Hearings. If you go in there, it will show you the date that your report is due. Let's see. Keep good notes. Just as Selma said, if you put good notes into Optima, when it comes time to write your court report, then you can just go through there and read them. Because sometimes it's 4 months, 6 months before you have to file a court report. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go all the way back 6 months. What did I do? What went on? And if you kept good notes in Optima, you can print those out or go back in and read them and then start your report. And it's really a lot of time. It's time consuming. I mean, less time consuming if you have your notes there for you. This is our new template for the court report. Y'all all should have it.
Other than my error.
It has a little bit of mess up, but you should have it. If you don't, ask your supervisor and we can email it to you. What the major change is it's going to say in the child protection court, and the of should be down here in Taylor County, Texas down here. That's really the only major change to the court report. If any of y'all, go ahead.
The date up there is the court date, not the date that you wrote on the report.
Yes, yes. That's the date of the hearing. Any other things you want to change? Okay. Let's see. What else? If y'all need help, if you don't feel confident in your court reporting ability, writing ability, just let us know. If we need another training session on court reports, if you just need one-on-one training, let us know. We'll be glad to help you. And because once you get the hang of it, then it's okay. But I know sometimes getting started, it's a chore. So that's it.
Thank you. All right, Rob.
You all have heard already a lot about who you're supposed to contact monthly. The child, if they are within an hour drive, you have to see them face to face at least once a month. Now, if they are of age where they have their own phone, you can contact them through that. Call them, text them, however you want, but at least face-to-face contact once a month. Your caseworker, whether that is the CPS or eventually down the road to engage, you have to have monthly contact with them. It does not necessarily have to be face-to-face, email, text, phone call, however you do that. Placement. Half of your visits with the child have to take place at the placement. And I'd strongly encourage, if you haven't yet, do unannounced visits. We are not looking to necessarily bust anybody per se, but anybody can have their act together if they know that you're coming. There are placements out there that do need to have an extra eye on them. So, even if your child is young, if the placement goes to reach for them and the child winces or withdraws, that might lead you to think there's something more here that needs to be looked into. That only will be found out if you see the child at the placement, okay? So make sure you're keeping up with that. And then, of course, your big country supervisor or coach, whatever you want to call us. And I don't think any of us have any problems with monthly contacts with you all. You probably hear from us more than you want to. It's going to continue. Sorry.
Did you tell them the R is required, O is optional?
Yes, that's what that stands for. R is required in that column. O is optional. However you want to do that.
I just didn't know if you said that or not.
So,
You're probably going, is she playing tic-tac-toe?
in Optima, the thing we keep bringing up, as you are entering all your data, some things to keep in mind. If you are like saying you're contacting child placement, and that's your thing, the activity that you label it as, and it's a text, unless if it's like a group text and you text the placement and the child, you cannot check both their boxes off to the side. Contact only counts for direct contact. So group emails or texts are fine, but you can't text placement to say, hey, when was their band concert? I'm going to be there. That won't count as a child contact, even though you're asking about the child. Okay? We have a lot of people that are starting to check the children's boxes each time because they're inquiring about them, but that won't count. You need direct contact for that, okay? Other activity types that are commonly misused is circle of support. That is not a group of you that get together like the attorney, the CPS worker, and placement, and you've discussed how are we going to help little Johnny in school. Circle of support is a very specific end of the scholastic career. They're about to leave high school. What's next for this child? You get invited to that meeting, okay? So keep that in mind. We are supposed to, at the beginning of every case, hand out a crime victims compensation pamphlet. If your child was the victim of violent crime and there's a police report filed on it, they can get some compensation for that. Whether that's the case or not, because we get CVC granting funding, we have to, at the very least, hand them that pamphlet. So help us remember in the future to get that to you, and then you give that to them, and then find that type that you can put in there that you did indeed give it to them, okay? We need to start tracking that better.
And Rob, isn't it even if the parent was the victim of violent crime? Because I think the brochure says the dependents of the person with the, that's what the brochure says.
Might be the whole family could,
Yeah.
I think. So keep that in mind. To engage will eventually filter in as they do take over. They will, and I'm not sure, we have not decided what we're going to call them. We'll probably call them what they call themselves. That would make it super simple. But they will start showing up in Optima as well. So look for that change, and we'll let you know when that happens. But do let me stress to use that note box, because we have had to do more than 1 or 2 court reports. And if there's information in there beyond the communication that we do have with you, it sure helps if we have to step in a hot second and write a court report or something, okay? Another thing to keep in mind is we're doing what we do for the children's sake, and it's all good and well that you guys know what you know, but as you've already figured out, we don't change much of anything. CASA does not have any power. We're doing what we do so the judge knows. People are not putting court hearings into Optima. That's somewhat what it's all about. Let's get what we know to the judge so she can make things happen. So please don't forget to enter court hearings into Optima and then go crazy checking all those boxes of everybody that was there, okay? So that's my spiel. Thank you for what you guys do.
Thank you.
I think we're doing questions later?
Oh, well, you can go ahead real quick.
Yes.
The circle support is different than when they age out at 18. You're talking about circle support for when they finish high school,
Yes,
because the two may or may not coincide.
correct. Yeah. Thank you.
You hit those. Oh, did you hit that, or is that Kathy going to hit more about that? Did you hit all of those, or does it matter?
For the most part, yeah, the big ones.
Does everyone know about pre-court?
That you guys are asked to be there a little bit early before the court hearing starts. That's your chance to really make sure you've met the attorney and CPS worker and placement if they're coming to the hearings. That would not be a court hearing. That we've added that as pre-court collaboration. Check everyone's name, their box, who's there. In the note, put a little description of what you guys talked about. You know, we've all noticed that perhaps another assessment is needed and stuff. So that's what we discussed. So that's, make sure you're accounting for that time, because that's when you guys probably do a lot of your talking with all the different players that are involved. So account for that, and then a second entry in for the court hearing itself. 2 different entries for that time frame, okay? We want to skip as often as possible. It's kind of hard to account for what other is, but then in that activity drop-down box, we really can't account for everything that you're going to do. Look through that list very carefully. We've probably got something in there that comes close to what you're doing. Okay?
Thank you. Oops. Kathy?
I think one thing, I'm just listening to Rob, one of the questions that was asked, pre-court and post-court, kind of falls under pre-court, because sometimes we sit there and talk to our families a while afterwards, or you talk to us for a while afterwards. So that can count also as that pre-court collaboration, but it's post. Minor detail. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, it's court related. So I get to talk to you all about your quarterly contact requirements, and that's when your kiddo is, so where are we at? On our O's and our R's. I'm trying to be like politically correct here. We have yes and O's now. So O's are optional, but our quarterly contact includes our attorney ad litem's, kid's attorney. We have to contact them at least quarterly. That's minimum. So I'm sure, I mean, that's pretty regular requirement that we all make. We have to contact our parents at least quarterly. That does not mean that we have to, if their rights have been terminated, we don't need that contact anymore. If they're in jail, we can write them letters. There's other contacts besides face-to-face. So, but the parents that are active in the case and doing what they need to be doing need to be contacted at least quarterly. And then, guess what? Your supervisor coach. at least quarterly, you need to get in touch with us, or we need to get in touch with you. And it says in person. So, pardon?
She was asking a question, sorry.
Okay. So those three things don't need to be done as often, but they still need to be done. Trying to think if there's anything with the yes and the no's that I have forgotten. Quarterly is hard to lose track of, and so it's but it's imperative that we do that. It's just one of those things.
And the activities.
Okay, so also we have educational requirements on a quarterly basis. Again, the attorney ad litem, medical, and then their treatment plan. And for anybody that has done a treatment plan at CPS, you've talked about your medical, you've talked about your legal, you've probably met with parents. And so that one meeting, most of the time, will meet all of these requirements. You just need to be proactive in thinking about what you talked about during that meeting. Does that make sense? So it's not a whole lot. You do this already. Sometimes we do it without thinking about it.
So we just have to identify that we're doing it already.
Stop and think, did you talk to them about their dental work? Did you talk to them about the last appointment? Did you talk to, because for one thing, they have requirements within the CPS guidelines that the kids have to be having these meetings and appointments and dental and mental health. They have to have it. And so you as a CASA are already talking about it, just being cognizant of it and reporting it for us is all that we ask. Yes, sir?
Are you saying they need to have these, say, a mental or therapy session every quarter, or what if they're not required?
If they're not required, then it doesn't have to be mental, but it might be medical. And that includes dental. And so when you have a kiddo that's in CPS, they have a doctor's appointment every so often. They have a dental appointment every so often, and that can count too.
It's just that you're checking to make sure those medical and mental health needs are being met and addressed.
Okay.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you. Uh-huh. But it's not first. Why is it not popping up? Sorry. Okay, there you go.
Okay. We did our last, we've been doing case reviews with you every 2 months. So we go January, February, March, and we're just finishing up November and December. Those were our last ones for every 2 months. We're now going to go to quarterly case reviews. That doesn't mean you won't hear from us, because what we're looking at is trying to help you stay on top of it before it gets down to, oops, I went 2 months and I didn't do this thing or whatever. So these, what we're doing is the case name is Billy Bob. Whatever.
Selma did those.
This is a sample. It's a checklist. I call it the chart. And so this is set up, and it's starting. This was from. We're doing this for QA to see for our audit to make sure that all the stuff has been met. But what you'll see is you see those little pink things. That was that minimum lady. The minimum lady didn't have any of those pink marks because all her little things are filled in. That just means there's some gaps here. 1 month, the CASA didn't see the placement or didn't contact the placement. So we're just going to try to do a whole lot better job. Tracking is a horrible word. Keeping up and helping you to remember what you're doing. So these charts will look like this. So starting at the end of this month, we'll start, or as this month goes on, we'll start going through here, and you'll notice these are all the things that Rob and Kathy have just said. Here's all the monthly contacts you're supposed to make. Here are the quarterly contacts, and see how they line up? Yes? So you can see that if you've got all these, this one is, if they're face-to-face, you may or may not talk to them on the phone. If you've seen them face-to-face, then you're good. If they're 2 hours away, you don't have to check every one of those boxes because you only have to see them every quarter. So see how it kind of lines up? And so we can just very quickly look down there and go, oops, there's a gap here. It's January the 22nd, I think. So hey, Teresa, you might, I think you haven't, oh, yes, I did. I said, oh, okay, well, I didn't see it in Optima, so just stick it in there. That's what we have found for the most part. You go do all the work, you just didn't turn it in. Really, and we teachers know that. They do the work. I did it. Well, where is it? In my locker. So get it into Optima, or we don't know it's there. So I know y'all are sick of hearing that word, but you just gotta let. And there's kind of there's Billy, Bob, and Sally Sue. There we go. And again, this one is not. That's okay, because look how many times they've seen this child, because the child obviously, and what happened here, it looks like the child got moved further away. So your supervisor will explain all this one-on-one with you, but this is just a better way, we hope, of helping to keep up with these minimum requirements that we have promised Texas CASA, but most importantly, that we've promised the judge that we would do to take care of these kids. Besides, we're maximizing our minimum. These quarterly reviews, we're requiring that they be face-to-face. So at least we'll see you 4 times a year, at least. Of course, we see you at court and all that other time. But what we want you to think about, we're doing charts, but don't think about that. Take your CASA kid and put your CASA kid's picture on top of that chart, because that's who needs to be maximized. I'm not worried about all those little, except that if I don't have all those little marks filled in, Alex suffers. He didn't get all of my attention. And Nevaeh, I wouldn't be at the track meet with her, because we're going to maximize what we're doing. And so I just hope you keep remembering in your head, okay, I've got to enter all these contacts. But wow, is this important, because all of these marks represent all these precious, precious kids. And on that note, I have your heart, yes? In this folder right here, I have 6 cases. And I've never ever done this the whole time I've been at CASA, and I'm going to do it tonight, and I'm going to do it shamelessly. These are what we call intakes. The judge has called and said, I would really love to have a CASA on this case. So I'm just going to throw this out here. Lauren said I was supposed to issue an invitation and we're going to sing a hymn, but that's and we never want to make anybody feel like, oh, well, yeah, I guess I better take it. That's not the point. The point is, maybe when I just give you a brief overview of these intakes, you might think in your head, you know what, I could do that one. So if you do think one of these cases might fit your own heart and the way that you might could work, I'm going to tell you where the kids are, and that might make a difference too. First of all, we've got a case of a 17-year-old girl, and she's here at Audrey Gray's house in Abilene. Her parents are here, and they're trying to reunify, but there are some issues because the stepdad is not doing what he's supposed to do. But this case is already ongoing. One of our advocates is having to step back because of some family issues, and it's killing her. It's killing her. But whoever would like to take this case, if there is someone, they'll be able to talk with this advocate, and of course the case is already going, so it's not like you'll step into nothing. We have a case with a 15-year-old girl and a 13-year-old boy. I can say this, can't I? On December 4th, their older brother was murdered in a drive-by shooting in a known drug house, and this 15-year-old girl tried to resuscitate her brother, and he died on the way to the hospital. And these 2 kids are on their way right now. The caseworker just texted me from the Wichita Falls Emergency Shelter. They took them there immediately, and they're bringing them back to stay with an uncle and an aunt here in Abilene. So that'll be a local case as well. I have another one with 2 females, aged 12 and 5, and a boy who's 9. They are at the Wichita Falls Emergency Shelter, about 2 hours and 2.5 hours away. But that's an emergency shelter, so that means they'll be moved somewhere else, and we don't know where. This is...
These kids got locked into a shed for about 3 days with one donut for the 3 of them to share. It started on the 17th at Walmart, the Southside Walmart. Police were called because the mom was making a scene in the parking lot. She admitted to meth use. All the 3 kids were in the car. The youngest girl, 5, well, she will be 5, had a t-shirt several sizes too small on, and that was it. Nothing from the waist down on. And they had come from the shed, so you can imagine being locked in a shed for 3 days, what you looked and smelled like. Both the judge and the CPS worker had a really hard time with this one, so there's that one.
Okay. Then there's a female 13 and a male 12. The rights of the parents have already been terminated, so but the case was just now given to us. The hearing is not until this summer, but they're in a foster home in Anson, so that's not very far either. Then the last one is an 11-year-old male, and he's in Early, right outside of Brownwood, with his step-grandmother, and this one, his father's deceased. The mom, the boy has made a sexual outcry from the mom's stepbrother. The mom's on drugs, so it's one of those drug cases that's so normal. Okay, just, again, if it touched you, see me later, okay?
All right, so after all the sadness, right. Okay, so I get to talk about quarterly team bonding, which I don't know if she has anything up there for me, but basically we want to get to know each and every one of you more than just a volunteer, supervisor, coach relationship. A couple weeks ago I took a few of my advocates out to the tap house, and we were there for almost 3 hours just having a great time, talked a little bit about CASA, but not a whole lot, just about our regular personal lives, and felt really, really good for me to be able to bond and share stuff with people that share my passion. I'm sure they left feeling great. I don't know, Alicia's back there, she can tell you. But so each of us are going to be more intentional in scheduling things like that, at least quarterly, if not more than. So please, we encourage you to come to those things. If you want to do one-on-one, we can go have coffee with you, or whatever the case may be, whether it's on the weekend, in the evenings, whatever you guys want. If you have suggestions, let us know. But we want to be here for more than just supervisory or coach role. We want to get to know you guys, so we encourage you to do that.
Thank you, Hannah. And Hannah's great at that. She'll go up to the school and hang out, bring you a cup of coffee, and so just let your supervisor know what would work for your schedule, and they would love to do that.
Y'all know we've grown significantly since we've been established and are getting more and more diverse cases. In just that 3 seconds that Sandra took to talk through those cases, and I think they're all a little heavy on our hearts right now. You see that they're so diverse. We've got ones that are PMC to the department already have termination, then you have the extreme physical abuse, or you have the extreme sexual abuse, or you have a teen parent. Right now I'm working a case where the girl has 2 babies already, and so all these cases are so diverse. And so we've really had to think about and think through how we're going to be better advocates for these cases. When we can't all be specialists in every single area. I can't be a PMC specialist and a teen mom specialist and a you name it specialist. There's just too much information going on. So one of the ways we've tried to look into becoming better advocates and providing better advocacy is to create specialties. So we've started with the staff. So our staff have looked at what their interests are, and they're now going to be specialties in certain areas. So Hannah's going to be helping us looking to PMC to the department cases. Maria's doing teen parents. Rob and Martha are doing human trafficking. Selma is going to keep us up with CVC, which, real quick plug, we'll give you more information on CVC one-on-one. It's a hassle. But It's a crime victims compensation, and some of our children, specifically that case you just heard tonight about the physical abuse, if there's a police report, they can get some funds due to that abuse. And so it's very in-depth, but Selma will be our expert in that area. And so we kind of, as a staff, decided that's what we're going to do. But we also know that as our advocates, y'all have specialties and maybe be interested in those kind of things as well. So maybe you heard a PMC, you're maybe in the middle of a PMC case, and you're like, oh, I really love this long, drawn-out process that is PMC cases. They get me fired up, you know? That might be you, and I'm really excited for you. And we would love to have you on that team. They're fascinating cases. So,
Well, in all fairness, though, you see them through to the end, and you get to see the ending of what you started. So
yes.
it might be long, but it's
Yes.
rewarding.
Just real quick about PMC case, I have a little boy who became PMC in the department when he was 2, and his parents' rights have still not been terminated. They've been in jail and non-communicative with the CPS, and we have no idea why that really hasn't been termination, but I got an order today. We're going to have a final trial after 7 years in April. Praise the Lord. You know what I'm saying? And that only happened because we were adamant about making that happen. And so those are things that PMC cases you can get excited about. Or if you have teen parents, so, you know, that's something you can get behind and say, I'm really passionate about that. So we'll be reaching out, or if you want to reach out to your supervisor and say, hey, I want some more information, we will send you to trainings. They're going to go to trainings on their areas, and so we will really look into making you a specialist in that area and use you as a resource. And we already use each one of you as a resource. How many times we're like, well, we're lost in this area, who should we call? Who would know? You know, call the nurse, call the, you know, whatever. So we're really appreciative of all the areas of expertise y'all bring, and we're really trying to deepen our advocacy with this new initiative of specialties. So.
And you can just stay up.
Yes.
Now it's this part.
Oh, great.
know.
It's transportation, that's why I say great, because it's risk management. I get all the really fun topics of quality assurance and risk management, and so Sandra is going to help me kind of talk about this because she went to some really in-depth training about risk management, and so I'll let you start with that, and then I'll kind of
Do y'all remember the doctor, the team doctor on the Olympic, and the girls made outcries against him? Well, when that happened, there was I don't know what you call them, a company called Guardian, Presidium Guardian. They are risk management people, and they're the people who swooped in to try to help recoup all the damages and tried to help the Olympic Committee come out on the other side of all this. So this is who put on this training in September that I went to. It's called Presidium Guardian, and it was just for CASAs. And you're sitting there thinking, oh my, I have transported kids so many times and I never even thought of half of the things they're talking about. You're driving down the street and you've got a teen sitting beside you, and the teen said, hey, can we go eat at Outback? Well, no, how about McDonald's? And he gets mad and he gets back to his placement and said, she touched me. And it's all over. So risk management, that's what we, so there's some things that we're putting into place. We changed our transportation policy. Well, I shouldn't say changed it. We updated it, tweaked it a little bit so that we want you, if you're going to transport your kids, number one, for the kids to be safe, of course, but number two, for you to be protected as well. So the very first thing that we were told is that there's always safety in numbers. So those of you who have a confidential companion, either a spouse or a friend, or your supervisor or another CASA, it's just always safer if you have somebody else in the car with you. So we encourage that. When I take my kids, especially if they're, you know, maybe that middle school or whatever, I have them sit in the back. I'm driving and they're there, and I say, I want you back there because it's safer. They may not know what I mean, but it's safer. So that transportation policy, you have to fill that out. We have to have CPS's approval for you to transport because these kids are in the conservatorship of the department, so they have to say, now they'll say to you, you don't need my permission. Yes, we do. These kids belong to you. You do understand that your insurance has to cover if something happens, a wreck or whatever, but see, those are, to me, those are the minor things. It's that ruining of reputations that is that's so out there. So you always have to come in and talk to the program supervisor before you do fill out the policy, because we want you to know straight from our mouth, what exactly risk you are taking. But yet we don't want to scare you away either, because these teens want to get out of their placement. They want to go eat and go to the movie or whatever. We don't want to stop that. We just want you to be safe. Okay? So one of the things that they talked to us about was, and again, this is always case by case, advocate by advocate, kid by kid. You know that. If they're a run risk, we probably will not give you permission to transport. You wouldn't forgive yourself if the kid jumped out of the car and ran when they're with you. I don't think you would. I mean, that would be a tough one. You have to have current driver's license and insurance on file, of course. Again, advocate by advocate, kid by kid. But to pull up somewhere, whether it's in front of the kid's placement or wherever, and sit in the car and talk is not a wise thing to do. Okay? So most of this, as adults, we know all of this, but sometimes when we've got this kid, we're treating it like our kid, and we forget some of this stuff. So that's why we're going to be very, very careful, because we want to protect you and protect the child.
Real quick, I'm just going to hit on incidents and accidents, because we have to report both of those things. So an accident, you have a car accident, you fall, the kid falls, an actual accident, then you need to call and report that. And this is going to be in our updated volunteer handbook, and so we will email that out to you guys. It's too long to print, but we'll email it out to you and you can review it. But basically, if there's, just like you would do if you were in a car accident, you call 911 if you need to, you call the police if you need to, whatever you need. Then immediately you're going to notify your supervisor that you were in an accident so that they can report it. And then there will be follow-up, and you're going to let the caseworker know and that kind of thing. So nothing, that's pretty much common sense. But what we don't always think of are the incidents. And so a good example of an incident, I was transporting my kids at the ranch, and it was the fall, and we're driving back, and a deer runs right out in front of me. And I mean, it ran straight across, and then we were okay, but then it immediately turned around and came back. And so it ended up doing that 3 or 4 times. But the first time it went by, it happened so fast I didn't react, it was okay. The second time it caught me off guard. So as soon as I slammed on my brakes, what did I do? Guess what I hit? A girl, a well-developed young girl. And she was so shocked, I don't even think she noticed. She's never even mentioned it, but I'm like, that's an incident. I accidentally touched her in a way, and it's understandable. But what did I do immediately? Where's Sandra, my supervisor? Sandra? I let Sandra know I had an incident. A deer ran out in front of us. Here's what happened, and I let her know. Now, this girl, like I said, she's not even aware that that happened. But if she chooses to say something at another time, and someone says something, then they already know about it. It's not like something I hid, something I was trying to act like didn't happen. Just say it up front. If an incident happens, just tell someone and put it in Optima under your contacts. I accidentally had contact that I didn't mean to have. And, so just make sure that you're aware of those things. And it's, again, for your protection. If you're upfront about something happening, no matter how minor it is, then it's less likely to come back to bite you again later. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, good. Okay, we're almost done, you guys.
We understand that travel has become extensive in some areas for us. When we drove down to Galveston, Sandra and I hit about 5 places in Houston, and I underestimated how big Houston was. And so we are very, very thankful for those of you who have been able to do those travels and cover the costs, and we know that's part of your volunteer, and we're so thankful for that. We also are very aware that can be an impediment to our volunteering, is that it's just so expensive to do all that traveling. And so Texas CASA has applied for some additional funds, and we are allowed to ask for reimbursement for those funds, and we have successfully done that a few times already. But one of the main things that they need from us is, when you're traveling over 100 miles, is to use a rental car. And so we have a great relationship with Era Ford. They let us come in and like rent a car for $30 a day, and they cover all the gas. It's great. So we'll send out more details on those kind of things and how different processes, but please get with your supervisor. We are pretty much trained on how to do that now. It's a new policy. But just wanted to let you know that please don't let the cost of traveling stop you from seeing your kiddos, because we can help with that. And that's really, really important is the child visits.
And you don't have to turn it in. Some of you consider that part of your volunteerism and a donation to the program, and that's awesome. We appreciate that. But like she said, if it's a problem, please turn it in. Don't hesitate to do that. And for the volunteers, when you're traveling, if you need your advocate to go, your supervisor to go with you, then you need to drive, because then Texas CASA reimburses you. They will not reimburse staff. So if you need that reimbursement, take advantage of it, and their supervisors will have that. But if you don't want to turn it in, you don't have to. That's okay too.
Traveling's a really big line item for all of us. So
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the last thing says, you can track your miles,
Mhm.
and that can be deducted from your taxes?
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yes. Your expenses.
That is a
Mhm.
big deal.
Yes, it is, and you can track all that in Optima. When you're entering your contact, have you noticed where it says expenses, mileage? Track it in there. You can run a report at the end of the year, and you can get all your mileage and all of your expenses.
Is that a new?
No, it's been quite a while. It's been like that.
It's the government rate, correct?
I believe so.
Yes.
How many?
55 cents a mile.
Actually, it's 57 cents now. It was 58, now it's 57. And you know what? I will put that on my radar as something we can do a better job of communicating and figuring out how to report that out. I apologize. Sorry. So we'll work on it.
Did you just say if we go over 100 miles, we have to get a rental car?
You can
For
get a-
reimbursement.
for reimbursement.
Oh.
Yeah. No. If
So
you-
instead of us paying for our Texas CASA paying for 100 miles, or it'll be 200 miles round trip, they can pay for a rental car cheaper.
Okay.
And so they would rather you do their requiring,
Okay.
if you're turning it in, that's
If
what.
you turn it in.
You still have to turn in a map, and when you do your maps, it's shortest distance, not quickest, it's shortest distance. And you can turn that in and follow the whole thing. Your supervisor will know how to put in that request
And
for the
a-
rental car.
Another option, sorry to go into more details, is you can just turn in a gas receipt, which is still cheaper than the mileage we have found, and we can still get the gas receipt reimbursed. So I know it's just really expensive. We understand that. So however we can
And there's
help.
programs, 72 programs across the state doing this with
Yeah.
thousands of advocates, so it gets expensive, so.
I did it the other day, or a couple of months ago, and it cuts the price or cost in about half if you rent the car.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't charge you, your mileage is not charged. You just rent the car and unlimited mileage. You can cut your cost in half.
CASA pays for the rental car.
Yes, CASA pays for the rental car.
Texas CASA will reimburse.
Yeah. You don't have to pay for the
No,
rental
we pay
car.
for it, and then they reimburse us because you're the one that traveled. So,
And then you can get your gas also.
reimbursed, yeah.
It's really convoluted. Just ask us about it, and we'll figure it out with you.
Well, we have slides, but we're not going through because it's kind of changed since we created the slides, so.
And you might tell them, because you just said something different than what you told me today, I think. 100 miles is
Round trip.
round trip. If you go over 100 miles round trip,
Which we learned Breckenridge is 102 miles. So we'll figure that out too, you know. But thankfully with 2 Engage, I have seen an improvement in them being placed closer. Not too many in Houston anymore, which is the worst.
How long in advance do, I don't even know, how long in advance do we need to, or how far in advance do we need to rent the car? Like, how much notice do we need?
They're really flexible with us. I would say maybe at least a week, but if it's a day before, they can usually make it happen for us too. Emily, our administrative assistant, is going to become the specialist in this area, and she has already learned lots of questions on those kind of things. She will help you get that all set up. So you can go through your supervisor and Emily, they'll figure it out. She's a pro, so.
Good. Okay, that's everything that we have. What questions do you guys have? Yes, sir?
Okay, when it comes to, you get a report from a placement, the foster dad or not. They went to the doctor today, they saw their therapist today, and you get the report to them. Is that put in as a foster placement, or is that a?
Who did
medical advocacy?
you got the report? Well, it's
No, you
it's
will
medical
only advise
advocacy.
about what happened. You
Yeah.
don't have a piece of paper.
Yeah, you have, that would be medical advocacy.
Okay, I just wanna make sure how we.
Yeah, wouldn't it? If it's about their, yeah.
If you read the report, whatever analysis, you're up on the know of their medical
Yeah, no,
situation,
this
so.
is a verbal communication only, they don't have,
Yep,
they don't have a.
that's okay, you still discuss their medical advocacy.
All right, just wanna make sure how to enter it.
And the other thing to remember is attempted contacts still go in Optima because you attempted to contact them. You can't force someone to answer a phone, you can't force someone to return a phone call or email or whatever. So don't forget to put your attempted contacts in there. Yes, ma'am?
If you're meeting with someone and you have a conversation that includes both educational and medical, are we putting two separate contacts in?
If you need both, you would have to, correct? Because you can't select two activities. You could copy and paste, so you only have to record it once, but, type it once, but yes. Good questions.
Which reminds me, I missed it, sorry, about permanency conferences. Pretty much between permanency conferences, court hearings, and SCPs, you'll get all of those things because they hit every one of those areas during those quarters. So those are like really key to hitting those advocacy pieces. Judge Prokes has done an excellent job. I don't feel I had a hearing lately. She goes through
Every area.
I have a little girl who's missing a tooth, and she asks me every time how her tooth is. So, you know.
Yeah, so you'll hit all those. You're already hitting them, just recorded in there, so it's proven. Good questions. What else? That's it? Oh, there we go. Miss Ava.
Yes, my ad litem attorney's not doing anything. I don't know why I would contact him for it.
Well, it's because if you can relate, raise your hand.
I'm gonna call him quarterly and say, how are you doing?
Yep, send him an email.
Just send them an email.
See, that's all you have to do is send an email. And usually you're doing it more than that because like on my case, every time, that was so good. When you send an email to CPS, half the time you're including them anyway.
Yeah.
So you've already done it. By that one email, when you put your supervisor, your caseworker, and your attorney all in one email, you did all of that at one time. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's, we relate, that's okay.
That's so sweet.
Some talk more than others or more available.
Can we add people that we like in that list that we associate with all the time? Like,
Does everyone know what she's talking about?
And
Yes.
I don't mean just their names. I mean that's already there, so you can just
Put a
check
drop down,
the.
Yeah, if you're comfortable adding it, if not, talk to your supervisor and they can
Okay.
help you add it. But people can be added. I think they can.
So I had an advocate add something a
Yeah.
while back, so yeah.
I think you can.
We can train you how to do it, or just ask your supervisor. They can do it really easily. Those
Okay.
associated.
Just
parties.
1 second, Alan. Brandy, Joe?
Okay, so for incarcerated parents who, I've just come onto this case, but what I understand is this particular parent wants to be involved or wants to be aware of and whatnot. So how does that communication, the quarterly communication, the quarterly contact? with
Probably
that
writing a
work?
letter.
Okay.
Unless you can talk to them on the phone.
You can, have you ever heard of JPay?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about JP.
No.
Well, there is an app, or you can go on the website to just the initial jpay.com.
Okay.
And we need to find
Yeah,
out
write it
how
on
to do
there,
it so that
JPay.
you can go on there, you can look up, if you know where they are and their number, their identity.
It's just J, isn't it?
It's just J,
Yeah, I know.
jpay.com. If you know their
I have
number
a bad.
or where they are, and there's ways of looking that up. Also, you can go to the TCJ website and find that out. Go in there, put their name in, and then it will tell you. Do you want to email them, write a letter, whatever. You just write a letter, type a letter. It's that simple, and you hit send. Now, when you hit send, it's going to say you have no stamps. So we'll have to figure that out because you can buy stamps on that website, and then you'll have like 10 stamps. Say you buy 10 stamps. Each time you send an email, it's one stamp.
Okay.
They get it within that day, either that
So that's
night
a
or the
good way
next
to do
day. They get it.
I see.
Now they will have to write you back. They most of them don't have access to be able to email you back.
Okay.
But it's a very easy way to contact them.
Okay.
So when they do that in there, they would have to put the CASA address so they could write them back up here, correct?
Yes, yes.
I just got an in with the Tennessee Colony. Was that what they were? Yes, prison, and I got to talk to my dad on the phone for free and figured it all out. And so, if you need it in there, I will help you, and we can do that. I had to work with the ADA and all these kind of things, but now I have a point of contact, and we can figure that out. So, it was fascinating.
So ask if you have incarcerated parents.
Yeah.
Alan?
If you're entering an associated party, Selma's familiar with this. Because if you hit there's several tabs or little buttons you have to hit. If you don't wait long enough, you have them in there 4 times.
Oh.
And once they're in, they won't come out.
Oh.
Yeah, once they're in, they don't come out.
If they're in there 4 times, they stay 4 times.
Okay. All right, good to know. Yes, ma'am?
There may be somebody, this may be a supervisor question, but if very many people had like a parent's rights taken away after several years and then they come back, and I've been asking the attorney this question about how did that happen? Why did it happen? Why are they back in the kid's life? And it turns out this wasn't necessarily a positive experience for either.
So the parents are trying to get back into the case again?
Well, the CPS aged out.
Oh, CPS invited them. Oh.
And I walked into a meeting and said, "What up?"
We all did. Okay. So if you have experience with that, talk to Jana and Kathy, and they'll walk you through that. That's crazy.
I mean, I talked to a family attorney that doesn't do a lot of family now, and they're like, "I have no idea." I said, "You invited them to the party, so."
Interesting. Okay. Any other questions? All right, guys. If you need to talk to your supervisor afterwards, you're welcome to. Thank you guys for making the time.
Make sure you signed in.
Yeah, make sure you signed in so you get your 2 hours. Thank you.
She handed that to me, she had to leave.
Down the street. Down the street from me.
Can you think that